Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So the last number of Tuesdays, I've brought to you my Checked Out series, which is where I run through what I have checked out on my library cards. And I kind of talk about what's on my, soon-to-be TBR and if I've made any progress in those books. And the problem is that I take 3 to 6 to 9 weeks to get through books. And so even in just a series of 4 or 5 videos, I've repeated myself a fair bit. And that's not super interesting for me or for you. So I decided going forward, I'm going to kind of try for another couple weeks to alternate my checked out series where I kind of run through what I have checked out on my library card. And I'm going to alternate that kind of a video with a video that I have yet to determine what it's going to be called. I'd like for it to be sort of a reading review where I just kind of update you on some of those books that you've been hearing about in my checked out videos, and if I've kind of done, it's like a weekly wrap up, like a mini progress report. That's the functionality. I'll come up with a snappy name that'll probably be the title of this video, and if not, maybe someday I'll come up with something cute. So last week I finished Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, which I think I've mentioned in like literally every video that I've done so far, except for the 2 or 3 book reviews that are by themselves. But that's because I was really taking my time and enjoying it. I was listening to the audiobook. It was a nonfiction book, and it was discussing sort of the history of humankind. That's the subtitle. I started off really liking the book. There's a lot of discussion about anthropology and, humans of the past, because there wasn't always just Homo sapiens. There were other species within the genus Homo. So it was really interesting, and I'd never taken an anthropology class, and I was just really loving it. I sort of felt like it was slow in the middle for me personally, just because there was a lot of discussion about how countries came to be, rises and fallings of empires, discussion of, religion, and all of those were sort of interesting, but like not a ton was really just grabbing my attention. It was just sort of a slump in the middle for me. I'm not really sure why. But I felt like the book kind of finished strong because he kind of ended with a lot of philosophical discussions about what it means to be human, and how sort of in the last 50 to 100 years, humanity has really just taken a new turn in that we are suddenly able to control ourselves and our potential futures with regards to the atom bomb and how we are sort of destroying the entire environment, and also the constant new information that we're learning from genetics research. We have a lot of opportunities to destroy ourselves and also potentially change our future offspring genetically. So there was a lot of interesting philosophy that was sort of touched on but not really discussed that I personally really like to think about. So the book kind of finished strong, and I don't really know how to rate a nonfiction book, but I mean, I enjoyed it, and I think I'll think about it in the future, and I definitely really enjoyed the beginning. So like 3.5 stars out of 5. It was informational. I just, it was good. Today, actually, I finished The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory, another one that I've mentioned multiple times. I listened to this on audiobook, and for me, I don't know what there was about this book that I didn't just like love it. I think it was really sort of a lack of conflict. I don't know. The premise is that this man meets a woman when they get stuck in an elevator, and he is on his way like that weekend to his ex's wedding. Ugh. And his date backed out. So after they have a spark, he invites this woman that he just got stuck in the elevator with to be his wedding date, the wedding date. And they have a really great time, at the wedding and, at the rehearsal dinner, and they have a great weekend, and they kind of spend the night and really get to know each other. And she is able to relax and enjoy it because there's no strings attached. And she has always been like a relationship kind of person. And he said in the elevator, he's not a relationship person. So she's, the whole time she's able to enjoy it because she's like, this is fun. This is casual. It's flirty. And I'm like, this is a romance. We know you're going to fall for this guy. Stop kidding yourself. So the two main characters live on opposite ends of California, and they keep making arrangements to meet up in the subsequent weekends. And they can do that because he's a doctor and she's a lawyer, and so they just like keep flying back and forth. And I'm like, yay, carbon footprint. But anyway, every weekend that they get together is just amazing, and then they like are falling. It's like really clear to the reader that they're falling more and more in love with each other. The problem is this like lack of conflict. Like they haven't had a relationship discussion. She is convinced that he is not a girlfriend guy and that he, you know, can't, that he's just having a fling with her because she's black and short and curvy, and all the guys, all the women that he has been with before are tall, willowy, blonde types. And so she feels like she's an odd one out in his dating history. It was nice to have the perspective of somebody who wasn't like, oh, I wish I was beautiful. And they're like the Bella Swan where like every single person is flinging themselves at her. But you know, that was something that Alexa was constantly working through. Basically, I like this book. It was a cute romance. We saw the two of them get to know each other, and I enjoyed that. There was, you know, moderately steamy, sexy times, but I just felt like there wasn't a ton of conflict. Like, because they had never had this discussion about what this relationship was going to be like, was sort of the main conflict. Like, she knew he wasn't looking for something serious, and like he was convinced he wasn't looking for something serious. So I think that if they had just had a discussion kind of on the third or fourth weekend of like, hey, I really like you, let's, you know, be boyfriend, girlfriend. Like, that was it. There was like not really any conflict. And when the sort of major turning point, you know, that third act reveal that usually happens in most romances happens, it's really like Alexa is sort of self-sabotaging. She's convinced that he's going to break up with her, like, you know, in a day or two. And so she just preemptively, like, basically breaks it off and starts this whole fight because she doesn't want to hear him say that he wants to break up with her. So I liked the book. It was just sort of middle of the road for me. I felt like there was sort of a lack of tension. There was these two like people who we knew were going to get together the whole time, and there was like really nothing for them to fight about. So I rate it like a solid 3 out of 5 stars. I am also about 65% of the way through Beefcake by Jiffy Kate. That's a Green Valley Chronicles series book. I am not loving this. I feel like it's just somehow sort of forgettable. I'm not really, like, I actually had to look up what these main characters' names were before I was talking about this to remind myself. I feel like the main female character is just like really closed off. Like, she just has these walls up, and the main male character is just like this like sensitive macho guy. Like, he's a fighter and she's a nurse and she's anti-violence, and that's sort of one of the main wedges between them. But like, Frankie is just so like unwilling to open up, and she's like not in touch with her emotions, and that's interesting. But it's we haven't really like learned anything about Frankie that the author doesn't just directly tell us. And I wanted more reasoning for why Gunnar is so interested in Frankie. I just am sort of in Beefcake, like, we're just told that Frankie likes to help people and that she's against violence. And like, yes, we're told she has this past that she's like trying to struggle through and figure out. But I'm not loving Frankie. It's like really frustrating when I'm just like, if you could like be trusting for 2 seconds, you would like solve most of these problems. And over the weekend, I made it about 65-70% of the way through Beach Read by Emily Henry, which I'm quite enjoying. The main two characters are, they knew each other in college. They're both published authors, and they're both in this like beach area in Michigan, working on their next books, and they're sort of both going through a little bit of writer's block. They have a lot of like sexual tension between the two of them, and at one point he kind of challenges her and is like, yeah, you think it'd be so easy to like write my genre. Their banter is great. Their banter is awesome. I love how they just like trade barbs back and forth, and it's great. And she sort of challenges him too. Like she's like, oh, you think you could write a romance or a romantic comedy? And so they make a bet that that the other person can't write those genres, and they agree to work on writing the other person's respective genre. And it's just so cute. I really am enjoying how she is like slowly opening up to him about her past. I felt like when she learns things about his past that he has not revealed to her, she justifiably is upset that he has not shared that with her, because she feels like she's already like kind of opened up. She's a little bit further along that emotional journey, but like he responds well when they just talk it out. That's really a slow burn so far, but like the tension is palpable. The main character describes how she's feeling like when they're talking and when they're in the car together, or when they have these like smoldering stares at each other, and it's so good. I feel it like myself. I can 100% identify with those feelings. She talks about like how she hasn't felt so charged in like years. And there's one line that I really liked where it talked about how her blood was thick and heavy, and yet at the same time her stomach was high and shaky. And that just like was so visceral of a description for me. And I was like, yes, I have been there. I have felt that way. That's a great moment. And it was good. So I am really enjoying this love story. I kind of want to hear, I'm definitely going to finish it, but I'm really enjoying it. Soon to be coming up is New Moon, because I'm hoping Chandler Ainsley and friends are still going to do another New Moon live show reread, but I haven't actually seen any announcements about that. But it is my intention to read New Moon. I'm also just started an old book that it was a reread for me. It's called Daughter of the Forest by Juliet Marillier. I assume she's French. I'm reading that with my cousin, and I think it'll be fun to have some discussions with that. And she started it over the weekend and then was messaging me last night, and I was realizing that she's like halfway through the book and I am on page like 20. So I have to hurry up and catch up with that. But that's sort of an update on what I've been working on and my progress report as it is. Stay tuned next week where I run through everything that's on my checked out list. And thanks so much for watching. If you loved or if you hated any of the books that I mentioned in this video, please leave a comment. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more ramblings. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.